Hello, welcome to our Creativity in Focus podcast. I'm Jodi McRaney-Rusho. I'm coming to you from the Curious Mondo studios, and I'm here today with Jodi McDougall. So you have the dueling Jodis. It's going to get a little confusing there sometimes, but I think we'll figure it out. So we would really love if you shared this with all of your friends right now, and particularly glass friends, fiber friends, button making friends, and of course hat aficionados and all of this kind of thing too. But also we will be talking about, just what it takes to be an artist and how different artists do things. And so if you know any artists that are interested in learning new tricks and tips and skills, share with them too. Again, it's the Creativity in Focus podcast. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us your name and a little bit about you.
My name's Jodi McDougall. I'm a glass artist, specifically in an art form called Marini or millefiori. That's kind of my specialty, and I make buttons for a living. And then I do hats. Hats are kind of my hobby business. Glass is my passion and fiber's my fun. And I do this for a living. And it's a lot of fun.
It's a
different life.
You notice that she doesn't say it's a lot of work, but it actually is a lot of work. And Jodi is one of the most prolific people I know. So before I ask you any specific questions, share. Make sure you share. Did you share? Go share. Now, share. Okay.
Share.
Tell me. This is really exciting for me because we are in the same place at the same time, and we're being forced to stay here for an extended period. We have never gotten to sit down and visit.
No, we're both
uninterrupted like this for quite a long time, if ever.
Yeah.
So I have all these questions that I can't wait to ask you.
Wonderful.
So my first question is, I don't know when you started doing glass. How long have you been doing glass? And did you start with lamp work?
No, I actually started with glass, with stained glass. So when I was younger, I was a self-employed single mom, and I realized if I wanted anything nice for myself, I would have to make it. And so I started doing stained glass because I loved Tiffany lamps.
Oh.
And back then it was mega expensive. It was before the whole rush of being able to get a lower priced item came into the country. And so I took a class, and then I made a koi fish Tiffany lamp, and I wanted interesting eyeballs for that koi fish lamp. And my friend said, "Why don't you melt the glass?" And I was like, "You can melt glass? Seriously?" So it was kind of like this weird moment for me. And so I bought a little torch, and turned it on, and that was it. I don't know who raised my son after that. I was just kind of lost in my basement melting glass, and that started me down this whole rabbit hole of becoming an artist. I didn't really set out to be an artist. I haven't been trained to be an artist. At this point, I've trained myself really, really good. So I've really thoroughly trained myself. So so I just started melting glass, and eventually it led to this passion for making glass buttons.
So, did you finish the lamp?
I did finish the lamp.
Good job.
I should have brought it.
So you started out making beads.
Right.
And you made beads for a very long time. I have some beads of Jodi's. I know, right? I have a lizard bead. I have a lizard bead and some of the large hole beads with silver lining in them. Wonderful. So you started out with the tiny torch making beads.
Yes, I made glass beads for a very, very long time. I think I made beads because that's what I originally found a class in. It was really hard to find an instructor here in Utah to be able to get started in that craft. So books and the torch were what I did for a very long time.
Trial and error.
Making lots of glass beads, because those were the books I could find. And then I found a class on making glass beads. I made beads and then started selling beads because I had so many beads.
That was my next question.
And,
when did you become overwhelmed with beads and decide to start selling those?
Very early on, because I was not a jewelry maker.
Right.
So I started making, so then I had to start selling beads because I wanted to pay for my glass and I needed more, it just became this vicious cycle within itself.
And then at what point did you quit your day job?
Well, I was a massage therapist, and technically I still massage 1 day a week.
Okay, so there is some overlap. Now, let me ask you this, though, because I'm curious. Has the massage therapy then flipped and become your escape from your job? Or is it just what you do? Is it just a different part of your job?
Actually, the massage therapy is an escape for me.
So
so that 1 day a week
flipped,
I have
right.
to stop, and there are 2 women that I adore that I still massage,
Right.
and I stop 1 day a week and go and massage them. And it's like meditating. It's
Right?
a lot of fun.
And it changes it. I'm guessing, you can tell me, but I suspect it completely changes your thought process. And so when you're massaging, do you think about glass? Do you solve glass problems while you're doing it? Or
No, I try not to. I try to just step out, because the wonderful thing about massaging is that's a time period where I don't have to be me, and I don't have to think about me, and I don't have to, I dissociate myself from the world, and I am just there for that person, and it's about their needs.
Awesome.
So I don't have to be obsessive about glass.
Let's be obsessive
the rest
about
of the
glass.
time.
Let's be obsessive about glass.
That's easy.
Okay, so do you have some beads for us to see?
I have no beads.
Not even the tiny ones on your
Oh
coffee
yeah,
necklace?
I guess I do have tiny ones. Sorry, I did start making beads again. That's a whole nother story. So,
well, we can't wait to hear it.
so these are some beads.
So here are some examples of beads that
And
Jodi makes.
You can see the small one, and actually the
And
focal one in the.
I'm just showing them the small beads right
All
now.
right, fine.
See these small
See how
beads?
demanding she is?
I know. I am bossy. Everyone
Small
who watches
beads.
frequently already knows that. It's not
Technically,
news.
the one that your hand is holding is a bead as well.
Okay, so all right, we'll talk about your fancy bead.
The fancy bead.
So let's look at this. This is the fancy focal bead here. There we go. Tell me about this.
All right, so that is a poppy bead.
Okay.
Um,
And it looks like it's layers.
Yeah, it's
If you
got a
look at it
lot
here,
of different layers
lots
to it.
of different layers.
It's
Okay.
got layers of glass, layers of sterling silver. It's got.
Is that the shiny
or
part?
actually, that's not sterling silver. It's fine silver.
Okay. And the
so-
difference between sterling silver and fine silver is that fine silver is like 99.9% pure.
Yeah, 99.
And then,
I don't remember all the numbers.
yes, but it's very close to completely pure. And
Right.
sterling is 0.925% pure.
Right, and it
Okay.
has a lot more of like the coppers and things to it, which will tarnish, whereas fine silver doesn't tarnish quite as quickly either.
Okay.
But-
So, and tell me why you use fine silver in the glass. Is it the tarnishing, or is it heat, or is it flexibility, or is it just better?
It's better.
Okay.
It goes into the glass better. It's just sterling has a lot of colorants in it that will contaminate the glass, and I don't want, I want to have a pretty controlled environment, and I don't want to add something that I think is going to possibly react to chemicals that are in the glass that will color it in different ways. So I've always just used fine silver. It works best.
Okay, so tell me about the process of, because this is a Marini, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay. And tell me where that word comes from. Is that comes
So-
from Italian?
It's an Italian word.
Okay.
There's a Marini. Most people know it as millefiori.
Okay,
which is million flowers.
right.
And
Suddenly it becomes a vocabulary lesson.
it does. And they keep changing the word here in America. But Marini, if it's lots of different Marini or lots of different pieces, it's a Marini. And if it's a singular piece, it's a Marina, actually, which we totally drop in this country.
Right. It's a pretty small field of people that make them.
It
anyway,
is.
so it's not a huge crowd that's dropping this
Right.
word.
It's
not, you know. So tell me how would you make this poppy bead? How did you make this poppy bead?
So the poppies, what I do to
So you
make
can
a
show us on
Marini.
you know what? You can show us with the one that you have here. Do you want to show me a finished one?
Yeah, why don't
this
I
guy,
show
this
you?
adorable
this
guy?
is, you can show
Why don't
the,
you show me one of those that's all the way finished, and then we'll.
of the button.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to talk about how this guy was made, right here.
So that's the sheep. He's my
There he
latest piece of
is.
work. So a Marini.
It's very cute.
Thank you. He was a lot of fun.
Okay,
But-
so how did you make this guy?
So in order to make a Marini, I have my flame, and I layer the glass horizontally, and I create a log that when you slice it, you see a picture. So what I'll do is
Did
I'll
you
make.
see how she said that in like, it just takes a minute?
It does.
It doesn't. How long does it take?
Image in glass takes me a week to 3.5 months to create. It
Okay.
depends on the complexity of the image. So what I'll do is I'll make like an eyeball one day.
Let me show the
And-
eyeball.
I'll do
Okay.
a nose another day. I think
Here's an
this is-
eyeball. Whoa.
Here's his nose.
With some eyelashes right there. Okay, let's see a nose.
And, you know,
And Beverly Lynn says, I love listening to how people become artists without formal training. Me too, because I'm one of them, but I'm not nearly this talented.
Oh, come
this
on.
This is just
I've seen her work. She is.
insane levels of talent. I'm like really not very talented at this part. So there's a nose.
And I'm still
okay.
learning. So there's
So-
still a lot I learn.
So you build each piece at a time. So we looked at a nose and we looked at an eye.
An eye.
And look how big those things are compared to, okay, bear with me a second.
Yeah,
here.
you're
I'm going
fine.
to show them. So here's the final image right here. And this is the eye that ends up pulled down to that. It's that eye. It's that little eye right there. That's this guy.
And
How crazy
I
is
put in a lot
that?
of detail that
Right,
you
because
know,
it's so
people aren't
big.
necessarily going to see, but that's one of the dances I've had to learn is, you know, how much information do I put in this piece that's going to be translated when I pull it down to a teeny tiny, like, here's the when I pull it down, so I'll get the piece super molten and I'll pull it down smaller and smaller and smaller. So I have different sizes to work with. And you can see that's the poppies that were the same poppies that were in the necklace.
Right, but
just pulled smaller.
so it's almost like it's like a microscope where you focus down into the design,
Into the
design
design.
more and more. So after you make the individual components like the nose and the eye, and then what do you do with them?
So once I've made all of the little puzzle pieces, I put them into my kiln.
Okay.
And I'll bring them up to a temperature, and then I will assemble them one by one, layering them together
While they're hot.
And it's a dance of.
I bet that's exciting.
It's, you know, is this molten? Is this too molten? Is it not? You know, you don't want it. You got to keep the temperatures just right because you don't want to get a droopy eye.
Right,
You
and
don't-
that was something you had to learn, that whole timing thing.
That
Right.
timing and that learning.
Did you have some
glass breathing and stuff? I had to
Things
really
where
learn that.
they were a little meltier than you expected?
Yes.
And what did you
Yes,
do
I
with those?
did.
Do you scrap those or can you save them?
I used to scrap those, but now I look at them differently and use them.
And how do you
So-
look at them differently? Do you reconsider your vision or make it like how does that work?
Well,
Give me an
a
example.
good example, and I actually
let's
have
see an
one on the
example.
table. So
Okay.
this is the queen, if you want to show them the queen.
The queen.
The queen,
I
or the
want-
Italians call her
I
La
want
Donna.
to be the queen.
The queen. So you can see that the queen is kind of offset, and the piece that I am wearing, which looks closer to that is the
Okay.
finished queen.
Okay, so here we have two queens.
So you can see there's both queens.
Starting to be
So
like a game of cards in here.
What
Okay.
I did was, you can see that that piece of the queen is kind of offset.
Uh-huh.
Well, in order to use the Marini or the cane in my work, I have to take a rock saw and I have to slice it, and then I have to polish it. Well, I sliced the queen, and half of her head fell off.
Oh, no.
And
Off with her head.
you know, that's money. That's food right there.
Well, that's 3
So
weeks worth of work.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the queen was a 2.5 month project.
Yeah, that's so. There's
that was a lot
no
of work
pieces
that
can,
I don't want to lose.
Right.
So I've learned to look at things. So, you know, it sat on the bench for a while, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this? And then finally, I was like, wait a minute, I can set it offset, and I still like her. I think she still works.
Right. So it's still, although it's not your complete original vision, it still has the spirit of the
Yeah,
original
it has
vision.
the spirit, it
Okay.
has the elements, and it's not wasted material for the landfill. You know,
Right.
it's a pretty button still.
It is. It's a beautiful button.
yeah.
It is. So let's show
Thank
us the rest of these pieces. So after you assemble the whole picture out of all of your melted puzzle pieces,
Right.
then what do we have?
So we end up with a piece. So I've assembled all the pieces.
And about how big is that piece once you've assembled it?
That
is
one
it
was about
about
football
okay.
shape, about, well, little, like a Nerf, a small mini Nerf football.
Okay.
So 2 inches long.
Oh,
about that.
interesting.
Yeah, I always
so
work
it's
2
a
inches.
short. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
just more like not even. So this whole time I'm picturing a rod.
Right.
But it's
a big,
really
long
not.
thing.
It's
No,
more like
it's
a
more
loaf.
like a
Like a-
little, so
okay.
that doubled. So it's about that
Okay.
long. And that's,
why
that's
2
pretty
inches?
manageable. Because the petals I work with are 2 inches, and also because
It's a manageable.
it's a manageable size, and it's not so small that when I pull it, it's going to distort really easy.
okay.
If I, at 2 inches, if I do more than 2 inches, it's going to get a little more out of control.
Okay.
And then
is
if I do
this-
less, it won't.
How did you
pull.
arrive at 2 inches?
Teachers, wonderful teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is this is an industry tip right here. So, right? Remember we
Secrets.
promised. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's
I'm
not
sure
a secret.
no one's watching
Nobody
or
heard it.
sharing or anything like that. So this here you go. This is a pro tip right here. 2
Pro
inches.
tip right there, 2 inches.
So then you have your football.
Right.
Well,
it's more of a log,
but I'm
but
seriously having a hard time wrapping my head around
So
this.
I have
okay,
this
so it's,
log.
and
And the image goes all the way through it. And I'll,
okay, sorry, I have to
You're
go
good.
back to this because I can't like wrap my head around this. So you take all these individual components, like this eyeball, and you get it melted. How do you pick it up?
well, it's on another
It's
rod
on a
of
rod.
glass.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
on
so
like
I've
a
got it on
punty
like a
type.
punty
Okay.
or another rod of glass.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's making more sense. And then you lay it together on what? Is this? Are you holding this whole thing up in the air?
Yep. It's pretty much
Okay.
resting on a really skinny rod of glass.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
there's a balance, and you have to be kind of strong to do this work, because I'll hear people be like, "Oh man, I was at the torch for like 5 hours," and it's like, yeah, you might be at the torch for 8 hours.
Right.
And balancing, and so you've got to have
Yoga and a
20
good
years
massage
of
therapist.
massage. 20 years of massage can do it.
So Debbie says, I think it would be wonderful to have a class with Jodi McDougall one day. Debbie, it is wonderful. I've taken a class with Jodi McDougall, and it was fantastic. So we're working on her. She's holding out so far, but we are totally working on her. Okay, so now you have, so what, as you add the one element in, and it's at the end of its own rod of glass, does that rod then come off, or does it just
It's not.
hang
I have
out? Does it-
I have hemostats that I'll go
Okay.
into the kiln with and grab and
okay.
layer it that way.
Okay.
And you have to do it very. Ooh, I've got I'm going to cut myself.
Oh, glass pieces. We're used to
I've
that
got
around
glass
here.
all over the place. How did that happen? So what I have to do is I grab it with a Marini hemostat and then I'll lay it on, but I have to do it very quickly because the second I grab that piece out of the kiln, it's starting to cool.
Right.
And if I don't keep the heat in it, it'll explode.
So the piece that you're building on, that you have in the air, is that in the torch?
Yes.
Okay, so
it's in the torch.
you're keeping that guy hot in the torch
Yes.
while you add the next piece on there.
Yes.
Don't you think she should have brought all this stuff to show us? That would have been like so cool, right? Just bust it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then okay, I can wrap my head around it now. So now we have a football-shaped piece of glass that's 2 inches tall and about this big around. And then what?
So then I've got this.
And this is
it's
the clear piece that is holding on to the end, right?
So what I do
Similar.
is I've got the rod up here, and it's holding on to the log piece. It's not football shape yet.
Okay.
So then I'll add some pieces of clear glass onto each end,
Okay.
and add another rod of glass to that end. So that way I have
Okay.
a handle that I can
Got it. Okay.
use. And I have to keep it hot the whole time
Okay.
because it's going to want to explode. So you got to keep the heat there. Got to keep it melting. And
I'm reconsidering my career as a lamp worker.
but it's fire.
She just says like it's no big thing, right? Okay. Okay, so you have a thing and it's not exploding.
Not
and now
exploding.
it's a ball of design with a clear piece on either end.
Yep.
Okay, and then what?
And then I'm getting it. So then I have to get it molten, but not too molten. Because if I get it too molten, then I'm going to get the droopy eye.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
you can probably still sell it with a droopy eye. You just have to rename it. Tip number 1 on becoming an artist. If it's not perfect, learn how to rename things.
Right. Learn how to revision it.
And
And
stuff.
we have talked about that before. And okay, so then what? Okay, now you're getting it molten hot, but not too
Got
molten.
it molten hot, not
Okay.
too molten, and then I pull it out slowly, and that makes it smaller and smaller and smaller.
Okay.
But so I've worked really hard for I spent just months and months and months in my studio learning to just pull even because when I'm making a button, I want to be able to control the sizes that the buttons are going to be.
Okay, I want to show them, if I can here, this is the same cane, and it's called a cane at this point, right?
It's called a cane right there. Yep.
So right here it's a cane, and this is the same cane, but, okay, sorry, this is...
There you go.
I'm really bad at
You got
this
it.
thing so far. But so here it's the same cane, but it's been pulled smaller.
Yes.
So now, once you pull it, then what?
Once I pull it, then that's when I slice it with a rock saw
Okay.
and polish it with a flat lapidary equipment.
Okay.
And
Which feels like this little bit here has been polished. It's very smooth.
Well, actually, that hasn't. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a
Nice saw.
good saw blade.
Good saw blade.
Good saw blades. So once I slice it, then I polish it.
Okay.
And then I put it back into the kiln
Okay.
because I have to bring it back up to temperature so it doesn't explode when I go to use it.
Okay, so you're annealing it.
No. No. So once I've sliced it, I've got this little bit
I'm
here.
Are you guys learning a lot? Because I am learning
Okay.
like vast
So
amounts.
I've
Okay.
done this little slice here, right?
Okay.
And I want to take that slice and I want to turn it into a button or
Okay.
a bead
Or whatever. Okay.
So I can't just go right into my flame because if I go right into my flame, it's going to
Got it. Okay.
pop.
Yes.
explode.
All right. Thank
So
you for explaining that. I understand now.
It goes into my kiln, and then I take my hemostats and I grab it out, and when I'm ready, I put it back in the flame and reuse it.
Okay.
So then I have the chance of losing it all over again.
This girl.
It's
I tell
crazy work,
you.
but it's a lot of fun.
That is crazy work.
Yeah.
Okay. So I find this to be just fascinating. Tell me, at what point in this whole process did you switch from beads to buttons, and why?
So beads to buttons. So I sold beads for a very, very, very long time. And then I started playing with fiber a little bit.
Oh. See, I didn't know the fiber and the buttons.
Yeah,
sort of,
the fiber and the buttons kind of were
together.
Yeah, they came together. So I started playing with fiber. I made a felted bag. I've always loved felt. So I made a felted bag, and I needed a button for the felted bag. And once I made that button, I was like, oh, wow. Why did nobody tell me about buttons? Because they are amazing. And I fell in love.
If only there were buttons on my clothing or something.
And cool buttons, you know? You got to have cool buttons on your clothes. So then, so I realized that I really didn't like making beads because I didn't really know what to do with them. And
that's a very interesting realization.
I stopped making, I did beads and buttons half and half there for a while.
Okay.
And that
is really, I like that. I like that. I like that examination of what you were making and understanding what it does or it doesn't satisfy in you as an artist,
right.
And changing what you make to, because ultimately that's what this is about, is making things that satisfy this inner need to be an artist. And so I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you realize that and just quit making them.
It was a
which
slow
is huge
transition, but it was,
and that's big to just quit making the thing that you've been living on.
Yeah,
for all that time.
It was a little and then also going, who's going to want to buy these really expensive buttons? Because
can I tell them how much?
Of course,
your buttons are okay. So here we have this button here, this guy, this sheep button, and I'm going to show you the back here. Can I take it off the thing?
Of course.
Okay.
If you can pull it off.
I'm going to break the set first.
She's
okay.
Getting crazy on us.
So actually, I'll show you the back. So Jodi cards these. She makes these little cards, and she pokes the button through, and it's got this little thing. What is that called?
A cotter pin.
A cotter pin, little cotter pin on the back there. So this button.
This one came off easy.
Okay. Oh, good. Let's show them the back of that one. Okay, so there's whoa, look at me all over the place. There it is. Okay. And it's got a little round white thing on the back. Tell me about that.
Well, if you can see it, those are my initials, JM. For a long time,
my initials too.
You should do glass.
Right? Oh my gosh, what an idea. Okay, so let's look at this one. So here's this larger one right here. Oh, I'm getting better at it. So this guy is what, 1.25 inches?
Inch and a half, I think. He's 1.5 inches, yeah.
Okay, and he retails for $70.
Yep.
Right. So this is a luxury good right here. This is the button equivalent of fine jewelry.
Yes.
And tell me, I'll give you this guy back.
Okay.
So what did you do? I mean, you have this idea, and who is going to buy these buttons? So what did you do?
Well, at that point, I had to kind of decide where I wanted to go with my art and my business.
Okay.
Because I was just starting to become known in the glass world.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I didn't really fit in the glass world because people kind of knew beads.
Okay.
And kind of knew what to do with beads.
Okay.
And there was, already these like places set up where you could sell beads and do beads. And,
okay.
and
so
stuff.
at the time, you were doing a lot of bead-oriented
shows,
sales
and stuff,
venues and shows and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's not a lot of buttons going on at those shows.
Yeah, not a lot of buttons. People would be like, what do you do with a button? And I'm like, you sew it on stuff. And I actually had a guy ask me that at a show. He was like, "What do you do with a button?" And I was like, "Well, you sew it on something." And he goes, "Oh, I'm not really a button guy." And I'm like, Velcro and zippers then? I don't, It just didn't make sense to me.
Right.
So,
it's because people people have this firm idea of what your product
what
is.
What a button does.
Right.
Yeah. And then to have like this, my buttons start at 15 and they go up to, I think my most expensive button has been 160.
Okay.
But yeah, so, these expensive buttons, they didn't know what to do with, and I had to learn to market myself based on my passion now. Okay. And so I started looking at who's going to use this, and I discovered fiber festivals.
Okay.
And knitting shows, women who are out there who are knitting, spinning, weaving. I'm a spinner. That's another one of my hobbies, so I make my own yarn. I have yarn and buttons. I don't knit.
But you felt.
But I felt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I go back just 1 second? Because I think you said something that I think was very important, and I would like to expand on that a little bit.
Sure.
And it was where you were talking about you had to really think about where you wanted to position yourself with the buttons. And what I think that you were saying here is that this is where you had to make the choice of, were you going to go all in and make expensive buttons, or were you going to choose so I guess the routes that we are looking at is volume versus quality. And is that a decision that you consciously made before you, or did that just evolve that way?
It kind of evolved that way because Marini was my first passion.
Okay.
So making the picture in glass is actually what I love to do the most.
Okay.
This is what I make to make a living.
Right. And now remember, each one of those rods, those pictures that she makes is only 2 inches of picture, and that is a finite number. So you have automatically built-in scarcity into your design here. So Kathy Watt says, "I love Jodi's buttons."
Oh, thanks,
We love Kathy too. Okay, so let's talk, if we can, fiber festivals.
Fiber festivals,
Right.
Yarn stores, or not yarn stores, fiber festivals, knitting conventions. You've got women who weave, knit, spin. They spend thousands upon thousands of hours on their projects.
Right.
And they understand that, hey, I don't want to just get a silly button from Joann's. No offense, not that there's anything wrong with Joann's buttons. They're awesome. They have their place.
Joann makes nice buttons.
But they want to kind of finish it off right.
Right.
And, buttons were originally not functional. They were ornamental.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't until like the Victorian time period that things started becoming more functionals with buttons. So I kind of went with that in my mind and my marketing, as far as, look, you've just spent thousands of hours making this thing. Why wouldn't you finish it off right? And, there aren't women who put $6 or $70 buttons down their sweaters. They'll do one statement button and then matching buttons going down.
So it is actually jewelry, but they wear it on their clothes instead of on.
Right.
Which is funny, because you said you weren't a jewelry maker, which you are, but
I am now.
But you make jewelry for clothes instead of jewelry for people, although you do have some. And actually, so I have a Jodi McDougall pendant as well. And
thank you, by the way.
Of course. Mac Brown says, "You two are adorable, not as adorable as you, Mac."
I love you too, Mac.
Okay, so here, this is my Jodi McDougall pendant. It's a yellow tabby cat, an orange tabby cat. And if you know me, you know I'm a cat lady, crazy
Cats
cat
are
lady.
awesome.
So how were the buttons received at the fiber festivals?
The cat buttons are a whole nother story. How long have we got? 4 hours?
Focus.
Awesome. Okay, what was the question?
Okay, so how were your buttons received at fiber festivals?
I have to do a lot of education. A lot of education. Because it still scares them.
And this, I want to say that again. I have to do a lot of
education.
Okay. It's not always about marketing. A lot of times you have to help people understand your art, right? So this is an extension. It all rolls up into marketing, but this is an extension of your artist statement. So it goes above and beyond why you love to make it, but then why they will love to have it.
Yeah.
Right?
Why they should, I like to say, wear your art. That's become kind of a tagline for me.
Nice.
And yeah, it's
Does it feel a little bit when you see someone, one of these beautiful handmade fiber pieces with your button on it, does it feel like somewhat of a collaborative effort, even though it came together
awesome.
at the end?
It feels really good. Actually, a lot of people will give me grief because they're like, oh my gosh, you make Marini, which is this intensive process, and the slices are collected and this is collected and you should be, and I love it when somebody sews it on a sweater. I do. I love it when it's put on a bag and they're out there enjoying it. And it's that, I have one of my other taglines, Worlds in Miniature, a passion for Marini, is I love those small things that kind of take us out of our world and take us into another world, which I think is what art does.
Okay.
And for me, it's kind of fun to make this, it's this wonderful whatever art piece, but it's also this little breath of fresh air that is so small and simple that you can hide on a hat or on a pair of gloves or and that makes me happy.
Still know that you have this masterpiece.
Yeah, that feeds me more, I think, than anything. Yeah.
So that being said, however, I understand that there are people who just collect buttons.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so do they display them? Do they just hoard them? Do they just...
Button collectors actually do use them. They've got competitions. They make cards. I'm just learning this myself because I don't generally market to the button collector world.
Okay.
But yeah, they have competitions and cards and themes and stuff that they do.
So just like larger art pieces have, okay.
And they love sharing and displaying their collections. The reason why my initials were on the back of that was because of the button collector world, because they were like, you have to sign your work.
Right.
We have to,
the provenance and the, okay.
Yep, because they also, the button collector world, the National Button Society, they not only preserve buttons, but they preserve history and histories of textiles and why things were made and what they were made out of. And yeah, it's a whole different world out there.
It's a very wide world.
It is a very wide world.
Okay, so now I know that our watchers there are a lot of artists in the crowd and also a lot of people who just enjoy art. So can I ask you some business questions?
Sure.
Okay, so tell me, because I primarily sell my artwork online. I do only one show a year and very few other venues. So give us sort of a little feel for how much of your work do you sell in person, how much at shows, how much at festivals? Tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you.
For me, for the past several years, it's been a dance of studio to show. So I've been pretty much, most of my work has been sold directly.
In person, directly to consumers. Okay.
I do sell online, but because of the time it takes to make Marini and the time it takes to upload things on the internet and stuff, I've been really bad at that. So for years, I've been more on direct show contact. I'm starting to pull back now. I feel like I've been building a name for myself and been building a base to where people want can't necessarily get to a show, but they want access to my work.
Okay.
So I've been pulling back lately and been getting more of my work online.
Okay, so I wanted to just point out here. So this is a marketing plan, right? Where you travel in person and you build a base, but at the same time, you don't necessarily. So at the same time, you evaluate where are you, and is there a better way? Do I need to keep doing it this way? And I went through the same evolution. I went a different direction than you did, but through this same process where it became not as critical for me to be there in person, and it also it's exhausting. Honestly, shows are just exhausting, and you can burn yourself out.
Yep. I think we were both at Farmers Market.
I was there for 7 years.
For 7 years, and I was there for I think 5.
It was, and it's a great place to start.
Yes,
and
wonderful
I would
place.
highly recommend it. But you hit the point where you've maxed out on shows, and in fact, maybe a little too maxed out on shows.
Yes.
And you need to pull back a little bit. So tell us about online. Where can we see your work online?
So online, I sell pretty much through Etsy.
And what's your store called?
Mcdougald Studios.
Mcdougall Studios.
Mcdougall Studios.
And how do you spell Mcdougall? It's with 2 L's, right?
Mcdougall.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody else already had Jodi McDougall, so I had
What?
to.
There's
I
2
know.
of you out
There's
there? That's
3 of us.
terrifying. No.
I know, right?
Right, seriously.
It'll never be the same.
So, and you're also on Instagram.
I do Instagram, but I'm really not as good on my Instagram.
Okay.
And then Facebook.
And Facebook. And what do you find with online sales? What do you find with your marketing there? What works, and what kind of thing do you have to do regularly?
I have to post on Facebook regularly.
Which is how regular? What's regularly?
Regularly, I used to think that I had to do it every day.
Okay.
But I think people have been tired of my train wreck. So
Not true.
yeah,
Not true.
it's crazy. So I've kind of pulled back, and now I'm doing every couple of days.
Okay.
And stuff.
And do you post?
Unless I'm being prolific, and then I'm like stuck in my studio working, and then I come up and I'm like, and then I go back and do my work, and so it really kind of depends on what's going on in my world.
So Rick Mondragon says, "Love your work."
Hey Rick, how are you?
Isn't it? This is the part I love about this is knowing that our friends are watching. It's just awesome. It takes all of the stress out of it and nervousness out of it. So what Jodi's telling us here is that you do have to be consistent to a certain extent, but not always 100% perfectly. You don't have to post every day at 11. Right?
You can give yourself breathers,
Yes.
and you can be a real human. And actually, I think me being human sells my work better.
I think so too.
I think it really,
It does.
definitely
And
does.
do you post process photos or? Well, I know you have because I've seen the eyeballing.
I do.
And occasionally she will post something and have people guess what she's making next, and that's always really fun. So has that ever changed the direction of what you're making?
No. It's never changed the direction of what I'm doing. I like Facebook for the fact that I get to take everybody along with me along the ride. Everybody gets to go for the ride of, will it work, will it not work? What's going to explode, what's going to crack, what's going to happen, because it's my world, and I love that.
Okay.
So I do that with Facebook.
We have a request from Maria to see more. So why don't you show us some hats?
The hats.
And particularly hats with glasswork on them, and then we can show some.
I only have one hat with
buttons.
glasswork on it because this is my personal hat.
Okay.
So I've always loved hats. I'm like trying to put the hat on the tray. Yeah, that's gonna go over good. So here's one of my felted hats.
Can you put it on for
This
us?
is my personal one.
Awesome.
I have always loved hats, and
so Jodi actually has shown up to my house several times wearing vintage hats.
Yes.
One with feathers. Was it feathers all over it?
The one with the feathers all over it.
Pheasant feathers even.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really cool hats.
They're amazing hats.
So tell me about this design of hat, this scrunchy.
This design,
it looks like a sorting hat a little bit.
I get that a lot.
I bet.
People call them sorting hats a lot. You know, I looked at it, I played with a tutorial that I liked that had, this woman makes incredible wild hats. And I was playing with that for a while, and then I just kind of started doing a shorter version because I wanted it to be practical, and I wanted people to feel like they could wear them. You know?
So you have this brim style, and but you've also branched out a little bit into some other brim styles.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that.
This is my hood hat, my
hood.
Pixie Hood hat, and this, I put this on yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, it's Little Red Riding Hood, which I did do in glass, by the way. So yeah, this is just kind of more of a pixie, cover your ears.
Okay.
You know, some people tie them, some people, I just leave them going. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to play with that pixie elfin.
So how many hats do you make a year? Do you have any idea? Do you make them in batches, or is it just sort of an ongoing thing, or how does that work out?
They've been in batches lately, so I would say maybe 15 to 20 hats, although this year I think I did about 40.
Wow.
And it was kind of my decompression time from the glass.
Okay.
So either spinning or hat making and stuff kind of.
So do you take classes?
Yes.
And what do you take? And I know you've taken glass classes.
I take glass classes. I continue to keep pushing myself with my glass classes and that.
And you teach glass classes as well.
And I teach glass classes.
Where's the next glass class you're teaching?
I'm teaching at the ISGB, the International Society of Glass Bead Artists, their conference in Las Vegas. So I'll be teaching there in April.
And does that coincide with the
Glass
with the Craft Expo?
They have kind of merged. So they're two different events, but Glasscraft and the ISGB conference, but they're going on at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in Las Vegas, you may get a rare Jodi sighting in between shows. And are you selling your work there too?
No.
Just teaching.
So
and
everybody's going to get mad at me right now. I'm not going to be there for the whole conference. I have a show with the Colorado Button Collector Society that same weekend, so I'm going to go teach and hang out and say hi to the glass world, and then run over to Colorado because that's my life.
And she's rarely at home a week straight.
But I'm working on that.
I know. I hear that there might be an addition to your
puppy. A new puppy. So excited.
He is cute. Okay, so did we get some close-ups of the buttons? Okay, good.
There's Foxy.
So we are just about out of time, and I would like you, if you have anything to say to aspiring glass and fiber artists, or really anybody who makes art and is wondering what to do next, what would you suggest?
Oh, make what you love, and don't be afraid to just go down that rabbit hole. That's what I call this life of mine. Don't be afraid to explore and take new classes and try a new show, and really think about what your voice is with your product. Once I found buttons, the world kind of opened up for me.
Okay.
And,
that is a very interesting statement, where when you find the thing you love, the world opens up for you. And I've heard that from other artists in other mediums, because I call it the squirrel, because the squirrel gets on the wheel and it spins, right? And that, if I have an idea that makes the squirrel spin, I know that it's something I should probably pay attention to.
It's something you should explore. If your brain will not
and if
let
your
it go,
brain goes right down that rabbit hole. So it doesn't really matter what you think you ought to be doing. Think about what do you keep coming back to?
Yeah, what keeps talking to you?
Yes, what is not leaving the back edge of your mind?
Yeah.
And so we have kind of a running joke at our house, because I am obsessed with bricks. For whatever reason, bricks. It's bricks. We're watching movies. No, we're watching movies. I'm seeing the architectural bricks in the backdrop. We're driving in a new city. I'm seeing the bricks on the sidewalk. and I have not quite figured out where that's going yet, but bricks, but I'm paying attention. I'm letting the squirrel do it. So find what you love, pay attention to what you love, find your voice, think about where you want to put yourself in the marketplace. If you are looking, where do you want to go? Is it making lots of things that makes you happy, or is it spending 2.5 months making one thing that makes you happy?
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. You
Okay.
sum up pretty good.
And if it explodes,
And if it explodes, get over it and just go on.
over it.
Well,
And don't call her for sympathy because
don't be calling my butt, because I've had so many close calls that you have to just keep going forward.
So
and
is
keep
there
producing
a
and
point
keep
where
doing.
you let a design go?
No.
Okay. See, for me, if I give it 3 tries and then I give it a space, I take a step back and let it sit for a minute. Okay, so we do have, sorry, we could talk for hours here. I told you we never get the chance to do this. So you can check out more of Jodi McDougall's work online at mcdougaldstudios.com.
Yep.
If you enjoyed
Oh,
this.
that's the Etsy.
Oh,
The website is jodimcdougallstudios.com. But if you just type in Jodi McDougall, I come up.
and
So,
if you get more than one, put glass with it.
Put glass with it,
Right.
yeah.
So Jodi McDougall, studios.com. I'm reading it straight
Studios.com.
off the tag here. Oh, look at that.
Look,
Ta-da. Information.
Yay.
And if you enjoyed this, look at that. There we go. If you enjoyed this interview, we would love for you to share it with your artistic friends and even your family. And join us next time for the Creativity in Focus podcast. We hope you enjoy this.
Thank you for having me.
Were you nervous?
This was awesome.
At the beginning a little?
Kind of. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Once you start talking about glass, it's all good.
Yeah, then it's easy.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Share.
Thanks for
Share
listening.
so we can bring more of this content to you. Thank you to Curious Mondo for having us here, and we'll see you next time.